Why don't we decide on one person to sacrifice? What the fuck? Sacrifice? Well, perhaps that's a bit of a harsh word, but yes. You've all figured out by now, haven't you? We can't all make it through those doors. If we split into two teams of 4 and 3 people, respectively, then 3 people will be left. 3 people will be left behind. If we split into 2 peoples of 5 and 2, respectively, 2 people will be left behind. But if we split into 2 groups of 3 and leave one person out, there's only one person will be left behind. Does that mean that... Okay. Hold on, I have to think about this for a sec. Junpei wasn't quite sure that was true. Wait a minute. 2 people get left behind if we split into 5 and 2. And 1 person if we split into 3 and 3 and 1. I got that part. You can't go through the number doors with any less than 3 people. But if we split into 4 and 3, then why do 3 people have to be left behind? Just run the numbers. Let's say we go through door 7 with 1, 4, 6, 5. Who's left over? That would be 3, 7, 8. What's the digit root from that? 9. Exactly. But door number 9 isn't here, right? That means 3, 7, 8 won't be going anywhere. That was just an example, of course. There are a bit of different combinations, but the result will always be the same. It doesn't matter which 4 it is, the 3 that are left over can't go through any of the doors. Go ahead and calculate it if you have the time. You'll see. Anyway, that's how it is. Now, if we can get back to my proposal, we only have to sacrifice 1 person if we split into 3 and 3 and 1. When Seven spoke, his voice was strained. Then, you're saying we gotta decide who's gonna stay behind? Yes, we do. Given our circumstances, it's logically and morally the best solution. If the other 6 are to survive, then 1 person has to sacrifice themselves. No, that's too cruel. What's so cruel about it? To just sacrifice someone like that. Then what's your plan? Maybe we should sacrifice 2 people instead of just 1. That's not what I meant. We shouldn't sacrifice anyone. I told you that's impossible. Wake up. Whoa, 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 calm down, you two. Santa stepped between Lotus and June. Look, what Lotus is trying to say is that you should aim to bring the greatest amount of happiness to the greatest amount of people, right? Exactly. That's how democracy works. And for that reason, I think the only fair way to decide who'll be sacrificed is through a vote. What do you think? No, that's terrible. I'm not asking you. Shut up. What about you, Santa? Me? Well, I agree, I guess. Alright, that's 1 vote for. Counting mine, that's 2. 7? I can't say I agree with you, but we don't exactly have a choice. If we don't do something, we're all gonna die. Glad to see you get it. If I can get 1 more vote, then it's decided. What about you, Clover? Clover had moved away from the group and was sitting on one of the beds. Her whole body drooped. Junpei didn't know if she had even heard Lotus's proposal. Lotus walked over to Clover and gently laid a hand on her shoulder. Your brother has to be behind one of the numbered doors. How are you so sure about that? We searched everywhere, but we didn't find him. Doesn't that mean he has to have gone through one of them somehow? Clover slowly lifted her face. Let's go look for him together, okay? If we sacrifice 1 person, then we can go look for him. You agree with me, right? Clover nodded once. You bitch. The motion carries. Lotus spun around and walked toward Junpei. Now, let's start a vote to... That won't be necessary. I thought you'd do this. Ace had barely spoken for Lotus's entire speech, and everyone jumped a little. 6 pairs of eyes turned to look at him. He didn't seem to notice or even care. I will stay. I totally knew you were going to say that. Out of all of them, I figured you were the one who would sacrifice yourself, because you just seem like that kind of person. You're a stand-up guy. That should solve our problem, yes? Ace, what are you saying? No, you can't do that. That won't solve anything. June's voice shook, and she looked around desperately for someone to agree with her. Ace simply looked at her. June, I'm afraid you may have misunderstood me. I said I would stay, but I never said I would sacrifice myself. Huh? I trust you, each and every one of you. I believe you'll come back for me. Aww, Ace. God damn it. God damn it, man. Whoa, there. There's optimistic, and there's just nuts. Those doors only go one way. You go in and you don't come out. If we go through 'em, you won't be able to return, correct? Yeah. True, but that will not be the case once you've escaped from the ship. What? Please, I beg you, once you've escaped, come back and rescue me. Ideally, within the time limit Zero has given us. No, that's ridiculous. There's no way we could get back in time. Finally, Junpei could hold his tongue no longer. We've only got 5 hours left. We don't even know where the hell we are. How on earth are we going to find someone to come and rescue you? Then perhaps you would prefer to stay instead of me? Or perhaps you'll be willing to leave June behind. Ace's voice was dignified and without a hint of cruelty or malice. Junpei had no rebuttal. You see, there's no other choice. Then I see we've come to our conclusion. Go on. Don't worry yourselves about me. Go quickly. Junpei stood frozen by indecision, unable to move. June bit her lips so hard that Junpei feared she would break the skin. You're staring that intensely at her lips, huh? Santa stood against a wall, calm and aloof. Seven tore his beanie from his head and turned it over anxiously in his hands. Only Clover stared at Ace with an expression Junpei was unable to decipher. Lotus' attitude, however, was different from the others. Good. Let's accept his kind offer, then. She smiled, her eyes bright. Ace answered with a smile of his own. Good. I think this is best for me. Perhaps I'll be able to take a nap. Perhaps it's my age, but I get tired so easily these days. As he spoke, Ace lowered himself down to the floor next to one of the beds. From somewhere deep in the ship, Junpei suddenly heard the screeching of metal on metal. It was almost as if the ship were screaming. Would it really hold until their time limit was up? Already, D-deck was flooded. In the sudden silence, the only sound was the sad metal wail of the ship. Unsurprisingly, it was Lotus who spoke first. Well, what are you waiting for? We're wasting time. Why don't we hurry it up? As if a spell had been broken, the others all began to talk at once. You're right. We should get going. That's all we can do right now. 7. Seriously. Honestly, I was getting kind of sick of listening to you guys talk. You too, Santa? I have to find my brother. Wait, all of you? Let's just calm down and think about this. There has to be a way to get everyone out. There has to be. Right, Jumpy? Say something. Yeah, let's think. There's gotta be another way. His words sounded hollow and fake. Fine. Forget about it. I'll figure it out on my own. She spun around and ran toward Ace. He had slumped down next to the bed, when Junpei grabbed his arm and pulled. Come on, Ace, please stand up. You can't give up yet. We just have to sit down together and think about this. We'll figure out a way that can get us all out of here. Then it happened. Ace fell forward. He slumped over onto the wooden floor, his body folded in half like a boxer out cold. Ace! June cried out and dropped to her knees beside him. She put her arm around his neck and did her best to lift him up. What happened, Ace? Say something. She shook him frantically. His eyes fluttered open. I'm all right. His voice was weak and slightly slurred. How are you fine? This... He outed his left arm and slowly opened his hand. In it was a syringe and a small vial. The vial was empty. It had only recently been emptied. A few drops clung to the sides. There was a label taped to the side of the container. It read Soparil Beta. Soparil Beta? Junpei had no idea what it meant or what kind of medicine it might be. Did you use this? Yes. It's just anesthetic. I'll be fine. Anesthetic? I found it earlier, while we were searching the hospital rooms. I thought it might be useful later. Didn't think I'd be using it on myself. Why did you do this? Didn't I tell you? I'd like to take a nap. I really am very tired. Junpei knew that wasn't why he'd done it. Ace had injected himself with anesthetic to forestall Junpei and Jun's attempts to bring him along. If he couldn't move, there was nothing they could do. He'd injected himself so that they would be forced to leave him behind. Ace. Is there something you want to say? I'd just like to sleep a little. Could you keep it down? No! Don't, Ace! Don't fall asleep! You feel warm. So comfortable. I think I'll have a nice dream. Ace's eyelids dropped further and further, almost as though he were dying. Ace! Ace! She shook his shoulder again and again, but this time he didn't respond. Only the gentle rising and falling of his chest told him he was alive. Junpei was relieved to see he was in fact still breathing. He lifted Ace up off the floor and laid him on the bed he'd been leaning against. When Junpei turned around, Lotus gave him a look of pity. Well, we really don't have a choice now. We can't let his sacrifice go to waste, right? She wasn't feeling any remorse. Junpei was sure of that. Still, he had no grounds upon which to oppose her. It felt wrong, but he had to agree. Then suddenly Santa spoke. Yeah, but we're not done choosing yet, are we? Huh? What do you mean? Well, we haven't decided who's going in what door. Ah, yes, that's true. Well, enough of this screwing around. Let's decide. You first, Lotus. Which door do you want? I want door number 8. It's the same number as my bracelet number. Got it. You're 8. You're next, 7. Which one do you want? I'll take 7. Can't get along with that old lady. What? What did you just say? His face distorted by rage, Lotus took a step toward 7. He threw up his hands and made a face like a child caught in the cookie jar. With his hand caught in the cookie jar. Ugh! You're going to get it next time. She shot him a glare that would have melted steel, then turned and stalked off. All right, who's next? Santa's gaze moved across the 3 people left. Finally, they stopped on Junpei. Junpei, which door do you want? At last. Junpei's mind was already made up. Wait, what should I do? Guess I'll go with door 8. I think I'm gonna go with door 8. Okay, 8 it is. Yeah. Alright, then that means Jun's gotta go through 7. No! What? Why? What? Santa grimaced and muttered angrily to himself and began to explain. If the 6 of us are gonna keep going without leaving anyone behind, there's only 3 ways we can do it. Plan A, go through 7 with 3, 5, 8, and go through 8 with 4, 6, 7. Plan B, go through 7 with 4, 5, 7, and go through 8 with 3, 6, 8. Plan C, go through 7 with 3, 6, 7, and go through 8 with 4, 5, 8. And that's it. Those are our only options. In other words, 3 and 4, and 7 and 8 can never go through the same doors. You get it now? As Santa finished, June looked over at Junpei, tears welling up at the corner of her eyes. Oh no. You're saying we aren't going to see each other again for a long time? Junpei felt as June did. He wanted to be at her side through whatever trials they were preparing to face. But he knew that if they were to survive, he had to swallow his feelings. In order for 6 of them to move forward, he and June would have to be separated. He looked at June. He was scared to lose her, but he swallowed, steeled his resolve, and did his best to smile. Hey, come on, you're making it sound like we're never going to see each other again. We gotta split up, but only for a while. This is just like when we went into the 4 and 5 doors, remember? We got split up then too, but we all met back up. I'll bet 7 and 8 are just like that. You mean they're connected somewhere? Yeah, probably. She didn't sound very hopeful. It was 7 that interjected. I'm sure they're going to connect somewhere. Why? What makes you think so? If they don't connect, neither team can get through door 9. In other words, the game would end right here. Zero's been on top of his shit so far. I don't think he'd blow it out now. I'm damn sure that son of a bitch wants to have his fun as long as possible. He's not gonna end this game until we get through the 9 door. June said nothing. The tears were gone, but her eyes were still sad as they looked at Junpei. He met them, and with what reassurance he could manage, laid his hand gently on her shoulder. Everything's gonna be fine. We're gonna see each other again, I promise. June bit her lip and gave him an almost imperceptible nod. Yes. Promise? Her voice was barely above a whisper. Santa's voice shattered the moment. You guys done, right? He stretched and continued. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Clover and I will both go into separate groups. I figure I'll take 7 and Clover can take 8. Any problems with that, Clover? Clover looked away and was silent for a moment. Whatever. It was more of a dismissal than an agreement, but Santa didn't seem to care. All right, we're ready to go then. Let's move. At Santa's command, the group split and headed for their respective doors. Santa, 7, and June walked toward door 7, while Clover, Lotus, and Junpei headed for door 8. For a moment they stood in front of the door. Then Lotus laid her hand against her chest and turned to Junpei and Clover. Are you ready? Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Then shall we go? The door had opened. A narrow hallway stretched out before them. Lotus and Clover leapt through the door. The moment they did, their bracelets beeped. The detonators in the bracelets had been activated. Junpei stepped forward to follow them. But as he was about to step over the threshold, he stopped. He looked to his left, toward door 7. June stood there, a mirror image of Junpei. She turned to look at him. Their eyes met. They nodded. Their farewell took almost 1.5 seconds. Then someone took hold of Junpei's arm and hauled his body through the door.